Dr. Walter Block. He is the most prolific Austrian economist in the country and sort of the titular head, economically speaking, of the school I follow. Welcome to the show, Walter.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for that compliment.
Right. All right. So convince a blockhead like me to vote for Donald Trump.
Well, Donald Trump isn't great. I'd rather have the Libertarian candidate, but that's not really an option. The option is either Kamala or Donald, and Donald is way better than Kamala in terms of being close to libertarianism. He's promised to give a pardon for Ross Ulbricht, a libertarian who's been in jail 10 or 11 years for drug crimes. He's promised to put a libertarian in his cabinet. Kamala hasn't promised anything like that. And in addition, Donald is not a libertarian. He isn't a free enterpriser. The tariffs are bad. But we only have a choice between the two of them, and I think Donald is much better. Now, you might ask, well, what's the importance of libertarianism? How few are we? Well, we only get 1% or 2% of the vote as the Libertarian Party, but a lot of times that 1 or 2% is bigger than the difference between the Republican and the Democrat. And also, if you define libertarianism a little more broadly, namely people who favor free enterprise and also personal liberties, you get libertarians in this big 10 cents of about 20%. So the libertarian vote is important. And I think that, look, if you're in California or you're in Massachusetts, vote for the Libertarian Party because Donald is going to lose big. On the other hand, if you're in Texas or Florida, Donald is going to win big, so vote for the Libertarian. However, if you're in a purple state like Pennsylvania, Arizona, Georgia, a few others, then your vote is crucial, and you shouldn't vote Libertarian. You should vote for Donald.
Not trying to be a butthead, not trying to make anybody mad. It's just for a guy who my perfect candidate would seek at least a balanced budget. We have neither candidate that's even talking about a balanced budget. That's such a letdown. When are we ever going to get to that if we keep compromising our vote?
Well, I don't think we're ever going to get there. Look, I'd rather have Ron Paul be the president or Rand Paul. Those guys are way closer to, well, not way closer. Ron is Mr. Libertarian, apart from Murray Rothbard. I don't think we're ever going to get to a balanced budget, but that's not the choice we face.
Right.
It's sort of like, Jack Benny, the comedian, he was once had a skit where some guy came up with a gun and said, your money or your life. And he was a great skinflint. And then Jack Benny said, I'm thinking. The point is, you're not going to get what you want, and you're offered your money or your life, and you take your life. It's better than losing your money. Donald is better than Kamala, so I think it's unambiguous that we libertarians should support Donald.
Well, since I have the economics chair of Loyola University on the phone, your reaction to the Federal Reserve cutting rates today?
Well, I'm a big fan of Ron Paul, and you know what Ron Paul's view would be? End the Fed. I don't think the Fed ought to be determining interest rates. I think interest rates ought to be determined by the free enterprise system. So I have no strong views as to whether they should raise it an inch or lower it an inch. And it would be the same thing for price gouging or rent control or any of that stuff. The libertarian view would be to end it. So, what's my view on whether rent control should be raised by 1% or 2%? We should get rid of rent control. What about price gouging? Get rid of that problem. What about the Fed? End the Fed.
Yeah, I guess you're probably not a big fan of the price controls put forward by Kamala Harris.
Not a real big fan.
No.
That's another thing.
I encourage you, if you're looking for some good books to read, start with Walter Block. The fun ones are Defending the Undefendable, both 1 and 2. I've been through both of those. I'm not going to lie and say I've read all your books, Walter, but I've read like 6 of them out of these. But is that where you would tell people to begin?
Well, yes, Defending 1, 2, and now I've got 3 already published. I also have a series on privatization, why we should privatize highways, streets, roads, rivers, lakes, space race, whatever. But if you're talking about favorite books, I wouldn't put my favorite books, or rather, I wouldn't put my books as the favorites. I would put Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand, and I would put Economics in One Lesson by Henry Hazlitt. those are the two books that converted me to libertarianism. And my main mentor and guru is Murray Rothbard. So I would say any of his books. And once you've dipped into those three people, fine. I'd be happy to have people read my books as well. But those are three of my favorite people.
Oh, look at him being humble and deferential on top of it. Walter Block, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
There he is. Walter Block, economics chair at Loyola, making the libertarian case for Donald Trump. How would you convince a libertarian, or how would you convince someone on the fence? How would you convince a moderate to vote for Trump over Kamala? What's your pitch? And I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.